Welcome to the Soul Driven Podcast, where we explore the essence behind the excellence and the soul behind the success. I'm your host, Colette Davenport, and today I am joined by Pia Mailhot-Leichter. Hello, Pia. Welcome. How you feeling?
Hello, Colette. I'm feeling really good. It's wonderful to be here in the presence
Yeah.
of you and Cleopatra.
Yeah, she joins us quite frequently. I know that you are unleashing creativity to build a better world. And if you will, tell us what that looks like in practice, and then we'll dive into what's behind that.
Sounds good. Well, in practice, that looks like me being the founder of Kollektiv Studio, conscious creation studio, creatively partnering with what I call visionary rebels, unconventional dreamers, and inspired misfits to bring their wild visions and ventures into the world to create an impact. That could look like creative coaching journeys, usually when people are at sticky junctures, meaning they're looking to either pivot or expand. They feel meant for more. There's something else that's asking or calling them they want to create. And it could also be more sort of creative journeys where it's like, I have this expression, but it's not quite tapping it in. I need creative direction and copywriting and brand work. And then there's always some coaching underneath that too. It's sort of like
Sure.
I have a mixing board with, coaching and creativity, and coaching is always sort of present. And then depending on what people are looking for in terms of more me facilitating and enabling their own creativity or adding mine more into the mix as well. So we co-create. Um,
Yep.
that that's that's what it looks like. And in this simple way of saying it is I help people create. People who do things differently to make a difference in the world. That's it.
Beautiful. Really beautiful. I need to know everything. And the clients that you described that you've worked with or that you're working with, I've been there as well, and multiple times on my professional and personal journey as well. So before I ask them this next question though, I'm going to shut off my camera so that you can have the spotlight and our audience can see you, feel you, and learn from you today. Okay?
Good.
Okay. So the first question, or I suppose it's the next question that I have for you, is what does soul driven mean to you?
Ooh, that means tapping into intuition. Because for me, soul, universe, spirit, the drop that is the ocean that's within me feels very much in like my gut, like my intuition. It feels like that knowing witness, that feeling, that felt sense that emerges when I get quiet enough to listen. And I think soul driven to me is intuition led. So when I tap into that felt sense, that quiet voice that usually doesn't have many words, if any words appear at all, but sort of like this inner knowing that's connected to a bigger knowing, if you will, connected to something more and beyond, and being brave enough to listen and to follow that, even when it's uncertain, even when you don't know how it's going to turn out, which is both frightening and extremely exciting when we don't know. And I think that's what it asks of us. And an understanding that no matter what I experience, really a trust that it's in my favor. It's for my highest good, even the things that might not feel very good at the time, where it's like, what? With hindsight, I can usually see that that's exactly what I needed to grow and to learn and to experience life more fully. And that's what I think I came here to do. The universe experiencing itself.
Girl, you're speaking my language. Now, sort of take me back, if you will, to the origin. Give us the background that led you here.
Okay. I believe that transformation is not a Happy Meal or a Big Mac. It's a slow cooked stew. It's a slow cooked meal. So I feel that there have been many subtle shifts throughout my life, some less recognizable, some others some other shifts that kind of were undeniable that led me to where I am today. I think everything has been leading me to where I am, but I can pinpoint a seminal shift in my life that led me to where I am. And that's, I worked as a creative director slash copywriter slash creative strategist for majority of my career, 15 years before launching Kollektiv Studio. And I also grew up on the Lower East Side, Manhattan, with my dad, who's and my mom too, but they were separated. So when I went to visit him, he's an abstract painter. So I grew up in a world of creativity and colors and form, and creativity was just something that you did. Like, it didn't necessarily seem special at the time because it was in my environment. My father, he was my hero because he followed his passion despite the cost. And what I witnessed, there was a financial cost. It was a rock and roll kind of lifestyle. And I recall at a young age thinking, I want to create, but I don't want to pay that hefty rebellion tax, you know? So I chose commercial creativity, or it chose me, until a time where, yeah, it was a rough time in my life where I was just coming off a divorce, not, I guess, as any divorce, not chaotic and difficult, maybe, that mine was chaotic and difficult and heartbreaking, and then into an unhealthy rebound relationship. And then I started a new job as the third partner to build a creative studio, which was a lot of work. And I just threw everything I had into work. I just threw my whole life into it. And also, it was positioned like, we're family, we're building something more. So I just gave it everything I had, which helped me, I wasn't conscious of it at the time, avoid feeling and dealing with all the things that were going on that I found very, very challenging. And 2.5 years into this job, I got fired. And that event was like the universe pressing the brakes on my car and just threw me right out the window. And I remember sitting on the ground, looking at the shards that felt like the pieces of my life, and like nothing felt right. Nothing. Relationship didn't feel right. Work was obviously not right. I didn't feel right. It just, didn't feel good. And also I was drinking, not crazy, but there were different, escapism was kind of the theme. Though on paper, I still look very, very productive and quote unquote successful. So, and that, after that moment, I had to take stock, and I had to go, okay, what's next? And I had that intuition, you need to do something different than I would have done, because I was on a work visa. I live in Copenhagen. I had a limited amount of time to find another job, or else I would have been kicked out of the country. But my intuition was saying, nope, you got to do something differently. And I always had a bucket list desire to travel on the Trans-Siberian. And I felt like I needed to go do that by myself for 4 weeks across China, Mongolia, and Russia. And so I did that. And it taught me and reminded me, actually, a lot of things in life I feel are like a remembering and a reminders. So it reminded me that, of course, I'd be okay alone. I've been on my own since I was 17. Like, what was I? Of course, I'll be fine. And not only that, but the world is big and beautiful and filled with adventure, and that I am supported. I met so many people, and so many interesting events and moments happened along that trip. But the last thing that it reminded me of and taught me was, I was sitting in the steel car hurtling across Siberia, looking out the window, the passing landscape, looked around, saw a Russian guy in a wife beater who was drunk on vodka, banging the steel, punching the steel wall, smelling sauerkraut and, sauerkraut and BO. And it's just like, it was such a moment, like an experience. And I was excited about it. I felt thrilled. I was like, oh my God, how did I, from where I was to here? And in that moment, I had like this epiphany, or this, it wasn't even a penny drop, felt like $1 million drop of like, hey, I creatively directed this scene. I brought myself here. I made this happen. I created this, like this moment, right? And in that beat, it showed me that creativity is not just something that you do. It's a way of being in the world and with my life. Like, I get to be the creative director of my life. And that was a profound, maybe it was a slight awakening. Yeah, sure. Let's call it that. It felt simple, but profound. And it's not like everything just magically fell into place after that. It took work. I left the relationship I was in when I got home. I did end up finding another job at a purpose-driven consultancy, and I did things very, very differently. This was before launching Kollektiv Studio. I bought my own little apartment and went on a 10-day silent Vipassana retreat and did a lot of different things that just fed me. And so I think that was kind of an origin. It was at least one of my big origin stories, I suppose.
Beautiful. That has so many things going on in it and so many elements that I would like to like pull one thread out and we can have the whole conversation about that. But the theme or the nugget that I'll focus on is being the creative director of your life. So for you, once you recognize that, I know that you made some decisions that put you on a different trajectory. What was, if there was one, the internal decision or shift that occurred for you as a result of that recognition of being the creative director of your
I,
life?
I think at some point, a belief that it was old. It's about awareness. I think without awareness, there can be no change. We can't change something we're not aware of, right? And so awareness is so powerful. That's why tools that heighten our self-awareness or partnerships that do the same are so powerful. But there was a belief operating in the background since I was a kid, which makes sense because I was a kid, of like life is happening to me. And I grew up in a very chaotic home, loving home, but very chaotic. I'm a recovering nomad, I call myself. I moved around all the time. And yeah, it was challenging. So it very much felt like life was happening to me. And I think that belief was sticky and it was kind of hidden because it was old. And in that moment where I'm like, hey, wait a minute, I'm creatively directing this scene. I'm choosing the set design. I'm, costume. I'm the protagonist. I'm and the director and the producer. Wow. Is that it made me aware of that belief. And only when I became aware that, wait a minute, I was operating from this feeling that things were happening to me and that I just had to, react to them or just to roll with the punches. And it invited me to sit in that creative director's chair. But first I had to become aware. So I think that's what shifted inside me. And then belief alone or writing a new belief, like, hey, I'm the creative director of my life, is not enough just to be spoken internally. We need to prove it in that we believe it through action. We need to create evidence that we actually believe that. So I think the decisions that I made and still make, like it's not a one and done. Sometimes I can get caught in that belief of like, oh, things are happening to me. But then I remind myself, hey, I'm creatively directing this. How would I like to creatively respond to life in this moment? I always get to choose. We all do. We always get to choose how we creatively respond to life and the circumstances we find ourselves in. Always. And it's easy to forget we have a choice. So I remind myself of that in those moments. I'm like, hey, I get to choose. And then it becomes also joyful. It's like, things feel heavy right now. Okay, I'm going to listen to Doshi in my kitchen and just dance for a minute and drink a drink I love and wear pink lipstick or do whatever I want to do. It's almost reminders that, yeah, of course I believe that I'm the creative director of my life because look, I just directed this next scene. And so I think it's a
Mhm.
practice, it's a practice.
And so would you say that it's the work to remember
Yeah.
the truth, and then to act from that truth, even in the face of contradiction?
Absolutely. I would say it requires a dose of rebellion,
Okay, say more about that. I love that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go for it.
because to create and follow our own path requires a rebellious streak. It means that we're brave enough and creative because that's creativity as well. It's not repeating or parroting or copying the same thing unless you make it your own in some way, right? But it's really much your own unique expression. So it's going to, by default, look different than anybody else's if we're tuned in and tapped into that. And it takes a lot of courage to carve and walk on that path because it doesn't look like what anyone else is doing. And so it's, I think it's very human to want to see, follow, I'm going to do what that person did because look, they're successful, or I'm going to follow that. I mean, it can be easy to fall into that, but it doesn't lead to fulfillment, because I do think we all have our own unique expression. And so I think it requires some rebellious spirit, like, okay, I'm going to do this thing, even if everyone else is saying, I'm going to zig if others zag. If I see black, I'm going to say black if other people say white. And that requires being connected to yourself, to the self with a capital S, all parts of
Right.
yourself, but also that big self, like that, spirit self that resides within you, whatever you want to call it, whatever resonates most with the people listening, because we can give it a lot of different names.
Sure.
And to create time and space to connect to that, so that that path can become clear to you, and that you can get the courage to walk it because it feels right. That's what I describe as like a rebellious dose. And I think creativity requires risk. Creativity requires a dose of rebellion, because that's what it is. You are making something. You don't know what it will be. You don't know how it's going to come out, but you trust the process, which is very much like life. And you enjoy it. It's not only to get to a specific outcome. And that requires a certain amount of like, let's see where my imagination takes me. Whether you're creatively directing your life or you're creating an idea, it's the same. It's creativity.
Yeah. Yeah. And for you, what has been the challenge as you trust and follow this creative drive? What's been the biggest challenge?
Ooh, well, I think I've said this before, but I'm saying it again. I think awareness, becoming aware of patterns and beliefs that have fueled me, that are kind of on autopilot, and making a conscious choice to move differently. And so, for example, unbeknownst to me, since I was a kid, like I think there's been a certain amount of fear that was in me, or I felt fear, and I was driven a lot by fear unconsciously at the time. And some of it was very warranted. It was also about survival. But I had like this voice, like, you got to push harder, you got to drive, you got to do everything you can, you got to go, 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 like, everything, just keep moving. Right. I felt very safe in movement for many, many reasons. And also I saw the result. I created evidence for that. Right. So then I saw that, oh, okay, if I throw everything I have into it, then I usually get a pretty good result. And so I was like teaching myself that this is how I generate or create success and survival for me. I also grew up in New York City, it's like growing up in a pinball machine. So I'm unstitching that and trying to I'm teaching myself, or practicing is a better word, of moving with trust with life. So when the urge to pedal to the metal, go, 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 and suddenly things start to shrink, it's usually fear driven, because I'm afraid if I don't do that, what's going to happen, right? Then if I become aware of it, I can go, fear is here, and feel compassion for myself. That's okay. It's like I'm on a spinning planet, like in the middle of the Milky Way. I can feel some fear. It's all right. But, becoming aware, but putting it in the back seat. You're not driving. You're not even touching the radio dials. You're not, you just, you have to come here in the back. I'm driving. You can be there. It's fine. Come for the ride if you want to, but I'm driving. And so it's constantly kind of taking myself out of the passenger seat, or removing fear from the driver's seat and putting myself back in it, and being like, it's okay. I can create space. We'll be immensely successful and move with ease and trust. Like, that's the new story. It doesn't mean I won't have periods of intense flow and focus and passionate work, but it's more of a feeling within. It won't be like, got to do this thing and got to keep going. It's like a spaciousness. And I think that's going to be I really believe in lifelong practices. It feels also more kind and more true for me that it's like a lifelong practice. It's not a one and done. It's not something that I figure out at some point. Kind of like this upward spiral, which I really love the description of, because it's like the universe is expanding. We are the universe. We are also expanding. Growth, expansion also equals fulfillment. Feels good, because in some part, I think that's our nature. So when we're kind of growing, we move from one rung and then we grow into a bigger space. And every time we move around the rung, one of the bends, we like get the bends. It feels really uncomfortable. Uh, like, because it's that like growth moment. You're turning a bend, you're entering a different and a bigger space. And it's fulfilling. It will be, or maybe it doesn't feel that way right now, but it's pulling you and it's exciting, but it's also frightening. And it's actually, those usually at those points when I've sought out partnership, and it's also when I usually partner with people when they're on a bend.
Right.
You don't want to get stuck there. You don't want to go back down the spiral. It's an upward. And I think that requires building our capacity to be in uncertainty, building our capacity to trust life and to trust ourselves, feeling safe enough to move with safe enough in stillness so that we can listen and hear what's within that's connected. And all of that to me is a beautiful practice because it keeps moving, right? It's not like you just arrive and you're like, oh, I made it. You know what I mean? Like, and it doesn't mean it's also joyful. It's many things. It's everything. It's life. But it just feels like compassionate and nice to me to remember that, because it's not that I'm supposed to be somewhere, like, or I'm behind, or, oh, I'm feeling this discomfort again, I must not be growing. It's like it removes the judgment. It's like, no, this is a beautiful life, is a creative process. And I'm in process. Life is 99% process, but yet so many of us get stuck on the 1% destination, which is like the destination comes and goes. You have a goal, you get there, and it's gone, right? So it's really how we feel while we're moving and growing and in process, and to kind of embrace that instead of judging where we are and why am I feeling this way, and to choose how we want to move and how we want to grow. And that just takes awareness of what's been driving us before. And is that still working? It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. It's just important to become aware. Is that what's present? What's driving me? What's the story fueling this? Is it helpful? Is it harmful? Is it inherited? Is it mine? And do I want to rewrite it? And if I do, what are the behaviors that will show that I actually believe that? Right. And I think
Oh,
that's lifelong. There's always some new, like, oh, that's there. Like, I didn't know that was there, you know?
yeah. I heard you speak specifically again and again in what you've just shared, to awareness being the key to confronting challenges, to moving through life, to growing, expanding, and even being okay with those unknown, what's around the corner kind of moments. When you're working with someone, how and where does one's attachment to an identity or a personality or a past maybe, how does that get in the way of creativity?
Mm. I think we often get attached to past versions of ourselves because it was usually a success. Like, we did something and we did it very well, and it worked for a time. And I think it feels very safe and comfortable because we know it and we know we're good at it and we can do it and we know what we're doing because we've done it before, right? Quite a few times. And so we can develop this like attachment to this. This feels really comfortable, right? This feels good. And that can get in the way of our own creative evolution, our own creativity, or the ability to create something new. What's next? Because the new creation is unknown. It's yet to be created. We don't know what it's going to be. And that unknown can feel very scary. And we don't know who we're going to need to become in order to create that venture, fill in the blank, right? And it becomes easier to stay in an old identity or an old rhythm or in the known rather than to take the risk into something new, which you have no idea who you might have to be to succeed at it or to do it or even just to do it or what it will become. But this might not be fulfilling anymore, but you know it. And so
Right.
again, I think that's what holds us back, is that feeling of comfort and
The
the known.
known. Yeah. Yeah. It's been a couple years now, but I went through that transition, evolution, we can call it, where what I had created was I knew that it was no longer my highest expression. And I was being called to expand. And so I did what I had done before, hire, the best coaches and did everything right. And the launch of that next version of my work, like, failed miserably, crashed and burned. And I had put all my eggs in that basket because, that's what I do. When I get the nudge, I go all in. And I wasn't prepared for that freakish failure. Uh, and so it caused me to confront everything that I thought I knew. Earlier, you talked about movement leads to success. You just get to work, get it done, make it happen, all of that. And girl, it was so confusing to me why it didn't work. And it led me to do something I never thought I would do. Like, I had to sell my house. And that was something that I was like absolutely adamant against because my house is my rock, my sanctuary, but I did it. And as soon as I made the internal shift from feeling like a failure who had no other option than to sell my house, okay, I have a huge nest egg that can get me through whatever next stage I need to go through. This is success. The fact that I have this ability and I can sell it real quickly for a lot of money. And so as soon as I saw that situation differently internally, there was a, well, I call it a divine orchestration of events that unfolded as a result. I had space in my life for the first time in my life. And that space allowed me to just be still. Not knowing what I was going to do next, not knowing when or how or any of these things that I had previously relied on for my security, my stability, my ability to live. All of that had been sort of stripped away. And I was just able to be still in the unknown. And like you said earlier, like, everything didn't just like magically, rainbows, butterflies, and gold coins falling out of the sky. There were challenges in that, but I was able to meet those challenges with stillness or inner peace or grace. And so things have unfolded over these last couple of years for me in quite a beautiful and sometimes tragic and yet beautiful way. And what I recognize now is that it was an identity that I had built that was a success. I had built that up, but it wasn't who I am. And and I'm very much a seeker of truth. And so because I have that drive for what's underneath it all, that which I came to rely on, that identity, that security, that certainty had to be stripped away. I had to be in a giant question mark in order to know the truth.
And what was that?
That would become the foundation from which a new identity, a new life could emerge. So what was the truth? The only truth that I can rely on that can never be stripped away is I am. That's the one thing that I am absolutely certain of that will never, has never, and can never change. I can add shit to it. I can cloak it in other words, but those aren't who I am. I am. And so is everyone else. That's the coolest thing about it. Every one of us is that presence or awareness, to use your word, right? We're each that. And beyond that, it's all the fun and games. It's all the appearances, but we can't come to rely on those appearances because they can be stripped away. Anything, everything, our physical health, our relationship, our business, right? All of that is temporary and can change. So what is it that we can rely on? And I believe that's the source of our creativity. And that's, for me, super exciting and worth exploring.
Definitely. That was really powerful. Thank you for sharing. And I think there's so many things in that I want to unpack. But one, what I'm hearing you say is sometimes it takes, life, the universe shakes us by the shoulders. Just like, hello, trying to show us something or give us something that we need to move into our own truth, our next realization, our next creative evolution. And it sounds like you also got that shake. I got it too.
Girl, I got the shake and then some, let me tell you. But it was
Yeah.
perfect and able to meet that with presence or awareness.
Yeah. What a gift. Because it sounds like it showed you that, like that ability. I can sit when
Right.
everything else is changing around me, my identity, what I thought was success, everything is shifting and moving. I can be grounded and present in the fact that I am more than that I am, right?
Mm,
How else would you discover that unless you got stripped of the rest?
right.
And if you're a
Right.
seeker of truth, and that is what's driving you, then that is a gift. I mean, let's normalize it. It also sounds very challenging. Maybe right when you're right in it, it might not feel that way. But from the way you're describing it, sounds like it gave you what you needed.
Right.
So I think remembering that helps me, especially if I'm in the thick of something that doesn't feel good or is like, oh, why is this? It's like, okay, well, I get to choose what I believe about it as well. Like I get to choose that I can believe life is shit and all bad things happen and blah. Or I could believe, well, maybe this is happening for me. I might not understand this right away, but I can trust that it's happening for me. And again, we get to choose our beliefs. So, we get to choose what's most helpful. And when I lean on that and embody that, then I feel that presence and that freedom. I feel a lot of freedom. Actually, the way you described also sounds like the grand experiment that I am playing with and exploring, and I want to keep doing for the rest of my life is like, what if we surrender? Like, that's what I'm hearing, a lot of surrender, like all this happened. You're like, okay, I'm just
Yeah.
going to be calm and present. And here I am, because, like these just surrendering to what's happening, surrendering to what is. It doesn't necessarily mean not doing anything about it. I think sometimes there's a misconception about surrender. But it just means like, I don't know and I trust, and I'm going to just be with it instead of fighting against it or wishing it was another way. There's a lot of energy, wishing
Mm-hmm.
something, hoping or wanting something to be another way or people to be another way. Has a lot of energy rather than just having the courage to look at the quote unquote truth or the reality in front of you and going, okay, well, this is the way it is. How do I want to be with that? And I think I am learning, and I, again, will be continuously learning how to allow and to release and kind of just see what comes. And I think entrepreneurship is a great practice ground
Oh, yeah.
because it's really uncertain. You never know what's coming. Life is uncertain, but we create sort of the illusions of certainty and safety through different scaffoldings, whether it's an identity, whether it's a job, salaried job, whatever it might be. In entrepreneurship, I feel really shakes that up because, come face to face with the reality of life, which is that it is uncertain. Anything can happen at any time. That's the reality. It's the way it is. Anything can happen. And that's the beauty. Anything can happen.
Mm,
How exciting is that?
right.
Anything can happen. Woo! Anything's possible. And it's also scary. Shit, anything can happen. And we get to hold both of those things. And then we get to choose which one we want to give more credence to. And so I am learning to like let go. When I first started my business, I was like, I wish I knew exactly what it was and I want it to be this. And I don't know, I had a lot more anxiety also about where's money going to come from? What is it going to look like? But I didn't give up. I kind of just trusted it, slowly building trust with myself and with life. Like it will be what it is. It will come. Let's see. I'm just going to keep showing up fully. And then around 7 months ago, I ran another experiment. Well, another experiment of like, well, instead of pushing and striving and trying and, throwing just so hard to do X, Y, or Z, what if I leaned back a little bit? What if I showed up, but I leaned back and I got
Yeah.
curious about what was coming my way? And you want to hear what helped with this kind of shift. There was a tarot reader I see from time to time. She's in Florida. She's great. And she gave me this like new moon affirmation. And she said, just start with this, Pia. She's like, I, Pia Leichter, ask the universe to allow me to recognize opportunities to do what I love. And I filled in the blanks and be deeply fulfilled, wildly successful, and stinking filthy rich, because I'm healing some money wounds. And those two, and I believe those two things can go together. Anyway, what really struck me was the line, allow me to recognize opportunities. Wait a minute. That means opportunities are already here. They're not something for me to get, to make, to create, to push, to strive, they're already here. I just need to recognize them, because they might be waltzing around in different outfits than I expect. Because sometimes I might think an opportunity has to look like, it's wearing Tom Ford, and maybe, I don't know, it's wearing an outfit from the 70s. Like, I don't know, right? I need to be able to recognize it. And that comes with trust and curiosity and surrender. Surrendering my idea of what I think it needs to be, right? To get curious about what the universe has in store or in mind. And remembering, like, I have desires or visions for my future, and I can have those, and then I remember to let them go. Because there was, I don't know if you know Sadhguru, but he has a good sense of humor. He's like a spiritual leader. And he said something along the lines of, I hope your dreams don't come true, because the universe is a much wilder imagination than you.
Right.
And there's so much humility in a very sweet way about that. So it's like, yeah, we should, can have ideas of what a juicy vision of the future might be. And then I can also let it go and get curious about what's coming my way. And life gets really fascinating when I'm capable, or like, working on doing that becomes really exciting. I feel very alive. Scary sometimes, but I feel very alive, very, very alive. And I want to live like that.
Yeah. There is that sort of fine line between anxiety and exhilaration.
Mm.
And I think that certainly for me, it's the viewfinder. How am I looking at this? What is my perspective? Because that's what allows me to feel that exhilaration that then moves me into more creative, more aligned actions, versus the anxiety perspective that I ain't getting shit done from that energy. Do you know what I mean? Like or if I do get shit done, it's like you said earlier, it's coming from a place of fear, which ultimately never produces the outcome that I'm intending.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful line. There's a fine line between anxiety and exhilaration.
Yeah.
That's really,
Yeah.
I think we get to dance on that line in life,
Right. Yeah. And we have to sort of be a little nuts, a little crazy, to be willing to look at a situation that everybody else is seeing and saying, you got to fix this. Or
Yeah.
what are you going to do about this? Because that was certainly what was happening for all my well-meaning, loving friends. Were like, well, you just need to go get a job. And I'm like, well, that's not happening. And I became open to it, but also knowing that open to surrender to what I think I need to be doing, like you said, but also realizing, knowing inside of me, getting a job isn't what I'm supposed to do here, just to make some money to keep the house or whatever. So the rebel was willing to roll the dice and risk it all to follow that knowing.
Do you know what I think? I think sometimes when we bravely move in that knowing direction, and it doesn't look clear and it looks chaotic maybe from the outside, and risk fueled, or there's just a lot of risk involved. I think it touches or triggers something in other people that might be feeling a nudge or a move to follow what's calling them.
Right.
I don't know. I just feel like usually it's a reflection of something that's going on also with the person who is responding to your to someone else's situation. And I think that's interesting. I think sometimes we touch on like, hey, you could do this too. Like this is something that we all get to choose. This is our life. You get to choose if you want to go to a 9 to 5 out of fear, or if you're going to trust I'm going to use your words, like, soul's calling or knowing, right? And to
Yeah.
stay in something that might seem from the outside chaotic and uncertain and crazy from the outside, because you trust yourself in life, and that you are, and you're deeply grounded and present. And I think that can also serve as like these little nudges or pokes or reminders to other people around us that this is a possible choice, and that can shake things up a bit. That's what came up
Yeah.
for me. So I'm just, shooting from the hip as I'm listening.
Yeah. And to your point, what I remember can't be taught. It has to be
Yeah.
demonstrated. I realized these so-called problems are simply portals to greater understanding. And that is something that someone has to experience for themselves. And so my greatest contribution in the world is being the example, the demonstration of that knowing, uh, which requires a lot of faith, patience, trust.
That's beautiful. And I think it's really powerful, and it feels it feels also aligned with what I believe. It's like, don't tell me how to do something. Show me how you did it or how you're doing it. That's inspiring, right?
Right.
And I think we can model behavior. And when we tap into what's calling us, when we tap into what we want to create next, who we want to become to create what's next, and what being alive on this planet means to us, and what we want to believe and how we want to move, we're able to model that for people around us to find their own way. Not that they should emulate our way, because it's our way. It won't work for them. It's not, you know what I mean? That's another thing about templates and advice. And it's like, it might be meant in the best of ways, but the only way to figure out what's right for you is to try and explore and experiment and get in touch with that you-centered place, right? And to carve that own path for yourself. And that's how you
Well,
find out.
yeah, and that's what you help people do. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sort of like facilitating. I help people find their own answers. Let's put it that way. I'm
Right.
not, I don't have answers for anybody. I only have answers for myself. I don't have
Right.
answers for anybody else. My answers are for me. But I like to help people find their own answers and tap into their own creativity, and to get closer to what it is, who they are, and what it is that they're really yearning to create, what they're really yearning to create, and to become aware of how they might get in their way, what stops them, what excites them, what lights them up, all of that. And then from that connected place to make your life, create the venture, build the thing, and see who you get to become in the process. Because that's also the joy of creativity. It's not only what you're creating, it's who you get to become in the process. And I
Yeah.
think it's so powerful.
Yeah. You're creating yourself through the creation of the thing,
Boom.
which, oh my God, how fun. And there is no better way to spend time, I think.
100%. How fun is that? But but that requires us getting closer to ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
What
And
moves us.
knowing who self is. Who am
Exactly.
I?
Who am I? And
Yeah.
to your point, I am, but I do also believe, like, even though I know Pia, this incarnation that is Pia, will end, but the witness will continue. The I am, like, that will. There's a old, when you said I am, there's I think it's in the Vedas. If someone can correct me if I'm wrong, or the Vedanta, and it's a Sanskrit expression that I read a long time ago that I loved, and it's that which is cannot cease to be.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's an I am that will not cease to be. And then there's the incarnation that is you, that I believe we chose for a reason, to learn something. I mean, I chose Pia for a reason. And there's also an honoring of that, while also knowing that I'm not her, or I'm more than her. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that will go, but also honoring that I get to play her in this lifetime. Like, that's kind of cool. This is like this is my protagonist role in this particular lifetime. It's a limited series. She probably will not be returning, but there's a reason why I get to express also from this incarnation. And there's something I have to learn as Pia that my soul can, take on. These are just ideas. I don't know for sure, but it's like a felt sense. And so I
Yeah.
think there's like a holding of both. Like I'm not, but it's also cool that I am this incarnation because there's a reason, right? There's something that I have to
Yeah.
learn or grow. And I'm also the witness. I am more,
Yeah.
right? Or I
Yeah.
am whatever the language. I think language can get in the way sometime, but
Yeah.
I don't know how I went off on this tangent, but I like these two things.
Well, and you're right. We are limited by language, and we're speaking about concepts that are on some level indescribable. Language doesn't do them justice. But yeah, yes, I get to be like Davenport
Yes.
for a minute or two,
Right?
right?
That's really
And
cool.
it's not who I ultimately am,
Yeah.
which gives me some freedom so that I'm not so constrained by this, what honestly, even though I have a pretty cool life, feels very confining when I sit still and let the full presence of my awareness be felt, if it can be felt, then the confines of my physical body and the life that I live feel really small. And
Mm.
so it's this dance between that infinite expansive beingness and the finite that I person that I get to be.
Mm.
Um, and then and then it gives me more space to have fun with this rather than
Totally.
feel, like life is happening to me versus life is happening through me. And so when I get there and when I remember that, and I forget a lot, FYI, I
Me
forget
too.
this stuff often, which is why I'm having this conversation with you, because in this conversation we can talk about it. And so, yeah, that I get to be Colette Davenport. So what are we going to do about that, right? Let's play. Let's have fun. Let's create some shit.
Exactly. I mean, let's creatively direct the hell out of this. Like
Yeah.
Colette Davenport. I mean, even your name is fantabulous. Like, I mean, it's just it's like a name from Dynasty or something. I love it. It feels very, like regal. Like we get to play, we get to have fun, we get to design, we get to decide, we get to create. We also get to take part in an action in our own becoming. Sometimes we might have been given certain things through our childhood, and maybe that's some of the work is making different choices and choosing what version of us we want to create next. And it doesn't have to be the same. And I think when I learn to love myself, right, and I'm falling in love deeper like every day, like it's another one of those lifelong practices. I can sort of accept everything it took to bring me here and be more open and compassionate towards all versions of myself that brought me here.
Yeah.
The ones that screwed up royally, the ones that did all types of things, I can bring all those parts home because I can see that without them, without all those versions of me, I wouldn't be the woman I am today. And when I'm able to fully kind of love myself up as I am today, then that integration and that compassion comes more naturally. And I think it's such an important part of our journeys to be able to do that.
Beautifully said, Pia. In my experience, when we can give that grace to ourselves, then we can give it to others. And then
Absolutely.
we've got more harmonious relationships. We've
Mm.
got a dynamic that works.
Well said. It's true.
Hmm. I have a couple more questions for you because I'm super curious what you love creating or co-creating the most. That could be in, a dynamic with a client or not, but just curious about that for you.
Well, here's what I discovered. When I left the last creative consultancy I was at, it felt, as I said, like there's like this mind blowing or this epiphany that's like, oh, I don't only get to create other people's dreams and businesses, I get to create my own. I don't know why that didn't occur to me before then, but that was one of those moments. And then 2.5 years later, when I got a call to write the book, I realized, hey, wait a minute. I don't only have to channel my creativity into building something that has commercial value, right? I can just create just for the joy,
Yeah.
just to create art to make an impact on one person's life. Whoa. Poof. And so when I, say my purpose is to unleash creativity to build a better world, I need to be able to do that for myself. It sounds so simple, but it's like the focus was very much on how I can unleash it in others or in businesses or in people. And there was a very important missing piece, which is unleashing creativity within myself in a variety of different ways that for some reason I was limiting without realizing it. Once again, awareness, right? But then when I became aware of like, hey, wait a minute, the opportunity helped make me aware. Like, of course I get to do that. I get to write a book. And then I'm going to do that. So what I'm discovering and what I'm learning to create and what brings me a lot of fulfillment is I'm learning to create a new choreography between creating with others and creating for myself. And it's delightful and interesting because it's a new dance moves, creating space to just show up. And if I want to write an essay, a poem, work on another book, sketch something, whatever it might be, to create the space to do that. I have it, create it. And to also have the joy that I get from co-creating with my clients, helping them see the vision and get to the heart of what it is they're really looking to make real in the world and then move in that direction and then
Yeah.
co-create with them. That's like,
Oh,
solid
yeah,
gold.
girl.
And then
Right?
doing that for myself. So I'm like, I think, first of all, we're born creative. If you're human, you're an artist at play. I can unpack there's a lot of evidence that shows that, not just my experience. And I believe that creatives are multi-hyphenates or multi-passionate, right? And somehow, somewhere along the line, we were told capitalism to a certain degree and the industrial revolution, the way of like, we have to be an expert at one thing, right? You have to do one thing really, really, really well. And that's it. And you have to just focus on that. And then you don't bring your whole self to work. You just do this, like you just compartmentalize and then you focus. We're experts. I like to smash that and say like, no, we can do many things. We're multi-hyphenates, multi-passionates. We can have different projects and different things that fulfill us and bring different parts of ourselves onto the scene. That gives me a lot of fulfillment. I enjoy doing that. It's not like just one thing. There are a few things that are lined up. And when I'm intentionally choosing what those projects are for myself, for others, it brings me joy. So I don't know if I just felt moved to kind of put that out there because I remember I worked when I first started my business. He was, I'm sure, wonderful. So nothing like that, but with a sales coach, I didn't work with him. We had like just one call just to like energy check. And he's like, you need to have one core offer and one client avatar, words I do not like to use anyway. And that's
Right. I
the only
know.
way I can help you, you could get to X amount of dollars. And I said, oh, no, no, no. I said, thank you very much. I'm sure that works for the people you work with. That is not going to work for me. And at the end of the day, I did not start my business to follow other people's way of telling me how to build my business that don't feel aligned with me. That doesn't make any
Right.
sense. Like, I'm not going to do that. This is my business. And I get to say, first of all, I don't have client avatars. I have wonderful human beings that I partner with, right? I don't even like the word clients, to be honest, but if I say partners, it gets confusing.
Right.
I'm going to offer different things. They're different pathways. There'll be a red thread. There is a red thread to what I do. There's a tapestry. There's a fabric. You can feel there's a connection. There's a territory that you're going to enter when you work with me or when you enter my world. But they're different ways, and because we're all very different. So I'm not going to have like a one template for how I work with people. Like I know it can make it feel safer to have like, this is the signature process. And I did have some of that at one point. But my truth is that everyone is different and each journey will be custom tailored to fit where you are and how we are together and what third we create together. And that's just what feels deeply resonant and has integrity for me. So
Yeah.
once again, I don't know how I got onto this path, but because you asked me like, what do I enjoy the most or something along those
Yeah.
lines. And I think there's a few things underneath in the territory of creating with others and creating for myself, which is also ultimately to impact others. But you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and everything you just said resonates with me too. When I work with someone I've definitely developed a framework so that we can have the fluidity that we require. There was a time when having that repeatable process was a useful way, but that time is over. And what we're bringing forth in the way that we're willing to rebel against the way it's done, right?
Mm,
That's actually exactly what's needed now.
mm,
We need to have both the certainty and stability and the integrity to lead and to guide and have that ability to be wide open
mm.
for what needs to come through and the way in which each individual is being called or inspired to create, to bring it through. So it requires a super high level of, here we go again, self awareness and a heck of a lot of life experience that develops the structure and the spaciousness to
Mm.
then work with someone who is bringing forth something for the first time.
Absolutely. And I agree with you that we need to have some kind of scaffolding or structure, right? To
Yep,
dance because and it's part of I think human nature as well and we need it, so it makes people feel good like okay, you know, you might have goals for where you want to be, what do you want to like, what is it, and they'll change usually and things will change, but it's just to create like the frame. This is the amount of time, these are the things, you know, so there is like a frame, but then we let it go and we
right.
dance in the moment. So yes to everything you just said, and it resonates deeply with me as well. And I think that's where heightened self-awareness happens. That's where transformation happens. And in that co-creative, courageous and safe space, because safety is required for that courageous exploration.
Yep, agreed. Agreed. Tell us in brief about your book, and then we'll wrap this up. But tell us about the book.
Sure. Well, we've circled around a lot of the themes, this is good in the sense that it's what I'm very passionate about. And it's what my heart and gut pull me towards. But it's called Welcome to the Creative Club. Make life your biggest art project. And it smashes the myth that creativity is reserved for the chosen few and invites everyone to access and apply creativity to the design of their lives. So essentially, it's an invitation to become the creative director of your life. And
Love
in it,
that.
yay. And in it, I share again personal stories of how I lost and found my creative power. It's back to the rebel in me. Like I didn't want to tell people how to do things. I'm not a guru. I'm not above you. I'm not eye level. I'm right here, stumbling, laughing, falling on my knees with you. You know, and I'm sharing that. It's also a mix of field work to invite people to experiment and to explore, and poetic pit stops and neuroscience research. And it's my editor said, if you're asking people to make life their biggest art project, why don't you make this book your biggest art project? So it's a mix to do
Love
invite.
that.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And so, how do you want people to follow up with you after this?
Well, Kollectiv.Studio is home base. So that's where you can find out everything about my book, book a chemistry session. If you were moved to like, I want to talk to this girl, and there's something I want to co-create. Subscribe to my newsletters. There's little conversations that we can continue every week. And yeah, and the book's available on Amazon, bookshop.org, and Barnes and Noble and other platforms. And I just released the audiobook, which I narrated a couple of weeks ago, which is
Oh,
on.
that's fun. Yeah, I would love to listen to you read your book
Great. Wonderful. I'd love to hear what you think.
Is there anything else that you want to share before we sign off that I haven't asked you about?
This has been a wonderful conversation, and I'm so grateful to be able to share this moment with you and with everyone who's listening. And I hope it gives someone out there something they might need.
Thank you, Pia. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your journey, your creative expression. Absolutely appreciate you.
And I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the conversation, for the connection, and for having me on today.
Yeah. All right, you guys, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.